Petty Officer, First Class is the sixth enlisted rate in the United States Navy and the United States Coast Guard, just above Petty Officer, Second Class and below that of Chief Petty Officer. A non-commissioned officer rate, Petty Officer, First Class is also the sixth enlisted rate in the United States Naval Sea Cadet Corps. Overview: in the United States Navy, each rating has an official abbreviation, such as ET for Electronics Technician, STS for Sonar Technician Submarines, or FT for Fire Control Technician. When combined with a petty officer level, this gives the shorthand for the petty officer's rank, such as ET1 for Electronics Technician, First Class. It is common practice to refer to the petty officer by this shorthand in all but the most formal correspondence. Often, the petty officer is just referred to by the shorthand designation, without using the surname. Thus ET1 Jones would just be called ET1. A first-class petty officer may be generically referred to as PO1 when the sailor's rating is not known, although some prefer to be called simply petty officer. To address a petty officer, one would say, Petty Officer Smith, Smith, or Sailor. It is uncommon to address a petty officer as simply, Petty Officer, the way one might address an NCO in the Marine Corps as Sergeant. Also acceptable, but archaic, would be to address a petty officer or chief petty officer of any grade as Mr. Smith, or Ms. Smith. The use of Miss, or Mr. is commonly only in reference to junior commissioned officers or warrant officers. Similar to petty officer, second class and third class, advancement to petty officer, first class is contingent upon the following conditions: completed a period of time and rate on their latest periodic performance evaluation, and the second-class petty officer's commanding officer authorizes a 1-year time and rate waiver. Recommended for advancement by the commanding officer. Have an established performance mark average. No pending request for voluntary transfer to the Fleet Reserve. The advancement cycle is currently every 6 months. Only second-class petty officers that achieve a passing score on the biannual advancement examination are eligible to be advanced to first-class petty officer. Once the examination is complete, a quota is established based upon the needs of the Navy with respect to the specific rating the sailor holds. Using the rating ET as an example, 1,000 ET2 eligible to be advanced after passing the advancement examination, 100 are allowed to be advanced to ET1 by the Navy. The 100th eligible ET2 received a 219.5 final multiple score, therefore 219.5 is the lowest possible final multiple allowed to advance to ET1. The Navy's current high-year tenure policy imposes a maximum enlistment of 20 years to a petty officer first class. If a petty officer first class is not selected to the pay grade of chief petty officer within those 20 years, the petty officer is honorably retired from active service in the United States Navy, and placed in Fleet Reserve for a period of 10 years. Should there be no recall of the sailor to active duty due to war or national emergency, the sailor will then transition to a retired status after a combined total of 30 years of service. The rate insignia for a petty officer, first class, is a perched eagle above 3 chevrons. On more formal uniforms, the symbol for the petty officer's rating will be placed between the eagle and the chevrons. On white uniforms, the eagle, rating, and chevrons are dark blue. On navy blue uniforms, the eagle and rating are white, and the chevrons are red, unless the sailor has served in the Navy for 12 years or more with good conduct. Then that sailor wears gold chevrons on the dress blue uniform. Gold chevrons are also worn on the collars of the navy blue coveralls uniform, and on the black garrison cap worn with the Navy service working uniform. The Coast Guard does not use golden chevrons. Working uniforms and metal rank devices do not have the rating badge symbol. First-class petty officers normally serve as a leading petty officer of a division, and direct the activities of a division. There are situations when there are more than one first-class petty officers in a division, due to the demands for highly experienced or skilled sailors in technical areas. Leading petty officer experience for a first-class petty officer is not officially required for advancement to chief petty officer. However, it is generally accepted that at least one documented tour as an LPO is a vital step for advancement. First-class petty officers often form associations at their commands. Membership in these associations are voluntary. On larger ships and some shore commands, PO1s may have their own mess, although unlike the CPO mess and wardroom mess, which have their own galleys and cooks, the first-class mess is merely a separate compartment for eating meals from the general crew mess. Petty officers serve a dual role as both technical experts and as leaders. Unlike the sailors below them, there is no such thing as an undesignated petty officer. Every petty officer has both a rate and rating in other services. A petty officer's full title is a combination of the two. Thus, a petty officer, first class, who has the rating of electronics technician would properly be called an electronics technician petty officer, first class, or ET1. The term petty officer is typically only used in the general sense when referring to a group of petty officers of different ratings, when the petty officer's rating is unknown, or when someone who is E3 or below addresses a petty officer while in basic training or A school. See also, Petty Officer, U.S. Navy enlisted rate and senior, comparative military ranks.